I've had a few comments posted on some of my videos that I believe warrant a response on a larger scale. So I'm going to address a few of those comments here today. And one of the commenters said, "You know gang stalking is a crime. Why aren't you telling your viewers to just go make a police report?" Well, there's so many things I could say in response to that, and I'm sure all people who have been targeted have considered going to law enforcement or have attempted to seek help from law enforcement. The problem is there's a lack of responsiveness in these types of cases. Often our experiences are minimized or invalidated. And, I've shared in some of my videos catching people in the act of vandalizing my vehicle and law enforcement saying that they looked like nice people and sending them on their way. Or when I offered evidence of homicide attempts to higher level law enforcement, they declined receipt of that evidence. And I think many of us who've been targeted have had stories similar where we just are not getting the assistance from law enforcement one would hope for, or we're being erroneously investigated by law enforcement. So it's hard to get their help when they're perceiving us in a false light based on the smear campaign and the false narrative that's been painted. In my story, the perpetrators in my case were trying to project and shift all the focus onto me through, false narratives to get police to go on a wild goose chase to investigate me in error falsely, so that they could get away with what they were doing behind the scenes in a large-scale theft plot. And I think on these platforms of gang stalking, there's generally three types of viewers or participants that are engaging in the comments. And it's likely those who have been targeted and have been through this themselves, those who have a genuine interest and are seeking to learn on the subject, and those that are actually targeters or cyberbulliers that are on the sites to harass and be skeptical and make rude comments, and thank goodness for that hide user from channel button. But I have a lot of respect for the viewers that have genuine interest in learning on the subject, that are in the legal system, that are in the judicial system, that are actually seeking the knowledge so they have a well-rounded perspective about what is happening in these cases. Secondly, I shared about having the FBI listed in my Wi-Fi network. And, someone commented and said, "Oh, that's just a joke. People use that as a name, as a joke on their Wi-Fi usernames. You have nothing to worry about." And I'm sure people do that they're clever and creative with coming up with Wi-Fi usernames, but that's not what happened in my experience. And I'm on my personal platform sharing my personal experience and facts related to my case. And in my case, there was multiple FBI networks, not just one. And when I went to a different residence in a different city that was not my own, those networks followed me. So there was definitely patterns there, and I have factual knowledge that I was investigated by the FBI based on false information and a false narrative. So I think, in gang stalking cases, one of the most victimizing things that can happen to us is having our experiences invalidated or having our stories, dispelled as if, they're not factual or minimized. And I think it's really important when victims of multiple crimes are coming forward on these platforms, whether the owner of the platform or those engaging and commenting. We've all been victims of many, many crimes. And so it's really important to give validation to our stories and our experiences, because so much of that has already occurred to us. The last thing a victim needs is to be re-victimized on a platform that's intended to be supportive and informative. And then lastly, I've had people comment on some of my videos and say, "Oh, your voice was so shaky. You must have been, timid, or that video must have been difficult because of the content that you made." And that's not what's going on. I have the aftermath in my voice of being a strangulation victim, and it does do damage to one's voice when you've been through that. And I think that goes to show, You know, in smear campaigns, what happens, what makes them effective is people are quick to believe, quick to assume, quick to come to conclusions or pass judgments. And it's really important as a society that we stop doing that, that we just stop generalizing and, oh, I hear a shakiness in her voice, so this must mean this. You know, you don't know the story, you don't know the facts, you don't know the full picture. And it's really crucial to take the power and the life away from these smear campaigns and this victimization by ceasing that quickness to judge, that quickness to assume. And I just hope that this platform, my goal is for it to be a safe place for victims and those who have genuine interest in hearing about our experiences and learning about these dynamics. Because the last thing that any targeted individual needs is to experience further victimization. We've been through enough.